Hey guys, this is a special one. This is Peter Cunha, your New Jersey real estate giant, broker owner of Open Doors. I'm here with Joshua Cittadino, good friend of mine. And the reason why I say this is special is I guess every time a certain industry gets mentioned in real estate, I have one guy for you, and this is the guy. So, Josh, with no further ado, thank you for being on this. This YouTube video.
Pete, thank you very much for having me. Greatly appreciate the opportunity to speak about my space. Obviously, very interesting topic. You know, you and I are closely tied to it. So, yeah, let's kick this off.
All right. So before we kind of get into the nitty gritty of what and for what people are curious about what we're talking about, we'll let you in on the secret in a little bit. But Josh, how long has I know your partner Richie very well. We're in a couple of networking groups together.
Yeah.
How long have you guys been San Verino and Cittadino?
So Richie and I went to law school together. 2011, we started, went to Barry University. I don't know if Richie's ever told you the story, but we thought we were moving to Miami.
Yes.
Little did we know the law school was in Orlando, so we had to settle for Mickey Mouse instead of South Beach. But we made the best out of it. Two New Yorkers kind of seeing each other in Florida was a unique experience, to say the least. I don't want to get into too many details, but we had a little bit of a beef at first, and then kind of became best friends and realized kind of similar in certain aspects, especially with the chains and the hair and then the dress attire. So let's just say we stuck out like sore thumbs down there.
All right. So I never even thought about this. I lived in Biloxi, Mississippi for 3 years.
Okay.
And you want to talk about Orlando?
Yeah.
Biloxi, I love my people down there.
Yeah.
It is definitely not New York City.
No.
And my roommate was a Jersey guy, and everybody'd be like, "Oh, the Jersey boys, right?"
The Jersey boys. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
This was great because it was like when Rutgers was number 7 in the country. They had that Noshawn Marine. I think it was Noshawn was on that team, but
they had Ray Rice.
Ray Rice. There you go.
Right.
And,
yeah. Yeah.
And it was just like, who Rutgers number 7? Get out
of
here.
Of course. Yeah.
So
no, my first experience, I had never been to Publix before. And the cashier lady was talking to me about the kind of turkey I had. Oh, my son loves honey turkey. And I'm like, okay, let's speed this up a little bit. She goes, oh, that's the peanut butter my daughter. Okay. I don't have all day, lady, but you just realize, okay, they move a little bit slower down there. They like the chit chat. They're not in a rush. You kind of have to take a deep breath and say, okay, Josh, you're not in New York anymore. You're not in Jersey. People aren't, snapping their fingers for you to move down the line quickly. But I'm sure you experienced that in Mississippi as well, right?
Yeah, no, it's definitely more laid back. I mean, that's why, like their barbecue food, like nothing happens fast. It's just, sometimes
slow cook. Yeah.
Slow cook. What's the rush? If the wings take 2 hours, it takes 2 hours. But the best part is like you don't even have to go down south. You just got to go to Delaware.
It's crazy, right? The South starts a lot sooner than you think.
Yeah, and it's fun. It's my buddy did a bike ride from Miami to New York.
Wow.
And he goes, everybody was nice until I got to New Jersey.
Yeah, 300 miles of hospitality, and then the horns start to honk, right?
He literally rode his bike, videotaped everything, had a drone with him.
Wow.
And everybody was interested in his story, and then he got to New Jersey and nobody cared.
Who was this guy? Forrest Gump?
No, a good buddy of mine, Alex Mondini. He's better known as DJ Alex in the Brazilian community.
Okay. Nice. I can't believe you get to Jersey and nobody cared. That's hysterical.
Right. Yeah, just 3 weeks of just biking or whatever amount of time it took. But I know Richie, I know you. I respect you guys. I use you guys for my practice or for my business on the real estate front. I know you guys do divorces, real estate. We'll talk about the cannabis. That's what we're actually filming today. And
some civil litigation, some wills and trusts. So we're a general practice right now, growing in all directions. So, building teams out that could really help us grow and allow us to, appeal to the masses, really. That's what we
Right.
want.
And so, and again, just because you have that New York background, how long have you lived in Jersey? Where do you live? Like,
So I just moved to Monmouth County with my wife and my 20-month-old son, Luca. We bought in the Madeline, Aberdeen. I'm not sure if it's Madeline or Aberdeen. It's still kind of confusing when you do a Google search. It's Aberdeen, I think, but it pops up as Madeline often. And been here since March, a year in the business, almost a year living here, and just getting adjusted to Jersey life. So it's been pretty great so far. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, it's we do a lot of videos on the, why people come, right? Especially now it's like from Brooklyn because people are taking subway rides. I'm like, move to Atlantic Islands, like take the ferry ride if you have to be in an office.
So my wife works downtown and she doesn't have to take the bus. She doesn't have to deal with Port Authority. She doesn't have to take the Long Island Railroad. She takes the ferry from Highlands or Bedford and she goes straight downtown, avoids all of that. And she said she loves it. So, that's why we picked where we moved to. I needed somewhere that was close to New York, just in case she had to take a bus or a train.
Right.
Now that I know Highlands has got a ferry, maybe we could move closer there at some point.
So many good options. I'm laughing because, there's all these like border towns, like it's Middletown Red Bank, right? It's technically in Middletown, but it's got, a Red Bank zip code.
Yeah.
So, the little fun nuances, but you get to live on the beach. So, okay, grand reveal. How did you get involved in the cannabis space? Because it's a hot button topic.
Wow.
Everybody's interested in it. I can basically tell you, I get at least 1 or 2 calls a week with people. Hey, listen, can you find a farmland for us?
Yeah.
in Wall, New Jersey? Like, I'm like, no, absolutely not.
What do you mean you don't have 100,000 square foot in Hoboken? If that's what you're looking for, good luck. But
right,
it's daunting a little bit.
So how did you get involved? Because I send everybody. It's funny. I bumped into some lady that was, she basically came up to me. She's like, I have a client, she works for a different brokerage. And she's like, I have a client looking for cannabis space, 4+ acres. And I'm like, okay, like, we know people.
Sure. So prior to opening my own firm with Richie, I worked in Manhattan for all my career. I worked for a stand-up real estate attorney. She was aces, and it really started in New York about 6 or 7 years ago. She was a business investor in different types of fields and industries, and she was like, Josh, I know you know a little bit about the cannabis space. My brother lived in Denver. So I know you know a little bit of the cannabis space. My husband and I are looking to invest or maybe roll this into some sort of business opportunity with legal. So I started doing my due diligence 6, 7 years ago, 8 years ago, and trying to read up about it. But it just, it hadn't hit New York yet. It hadn't hit New Jersey yet. Then finally, working in big corporate law firms, you don't really have the opportunity to say, hey, partner, I'm going to bring in, cannabis work. And they're like, well, that's not the kind of work we do here. So once I opened my doors with Rich last January, I said, okay, let's start to deal with the types of clientele we want to grow our space in. I met a bunch of people in the cannabis realm, started reading up on the CRC, which is the Cannabis Regulatory Commission here in New Jersey, familiar with the legislation, the committee. I log in for every board meeting, understand what's going on the day-to-day, what's changing, what's being amended, and landed a couple of clients, and now it's been growing from there. So probably represent more than a handful of cannabis related people, whether it's whatever license they're looking for. And we're a full stop shop where we help the businesses get started. We help create the operating agreements. We help build the structure for these businesses, help guide them on the real estate aspect, and then, help draft their applications and help them get the actual license so they could either sell, grow, distribute, or manufacture cannabis legally here in New Jersey.
So let's hit the pause button a little bit, right? Because my background's more on the financial side when it comes to cannabis. And I get a lot of people. It's like weird, it's like whether or not you take cannabis, I'm not a judge here, right? I'm not judge or jury, I could care less. But the reality is, it's a big push right now. You're seeing the West Coast, which is, I guess, what is it? Denver is the Silicon Valley of the weed industry, right? And
Yep.
we've been to all these different conferences where it's like, drinking, versus edibles versus, what they call flower, et cetera.
Yep.
But what most people, when they call me, they're like, oh, I have this great idea. Like you said, let's get into the cannabis space, right? And I'm like,
Sure.
great. Do you have a license? So, so they don't know anything. I'm trying to help. That the reason why I wanted, I want this to be, productive, because I think a lot of people want to get into the space. Let's start with the basics. What are, like you mentioned, I think 4 of them: selling, growing, manufacturing. Even where would you put in, like, there's a lot of businesses that do the containers, or like.
Yeah, so there's 5, well, there's 6 classes, but there's 5 or 6 licenses in Jersey. There's the cultivation license, there's the manufacturer license, there's the wholesale license, there's the distribution license, the retail license, and then the delivery license. Cultivation has to deal with growing, manufacturing is producing recreational uses out of the flower. Wholesaling is pretty much like almost like B2B. It's warehouse, it's cultivators to wholesalers to retailers. The distribution is the transport of the cannabis. The retail is what you see in Denver. You walk into a shop and you buy your vapes or your oils or your flowers, and then the delivery is another transport to consumers to purchase. So each license you have to apply for. The way that they kind of set it up in New Jersey and in New York is that they wanted to stop the MSOs, the multi-state operators from the West Coast coming into Jersey, the East Coast, and kind of imposing their will. So they wanted to limit vertical integration. You can't grow and manufacture and have a retail and have a delivery, because these companies out there that have been operating like Dutchy for 20 years, they have all the capital. They can come in there, they can buy up all the space and take over the market. They wanted to give the people who are oppressed, or the people that want to get started, the mom and pop businesses in this industry, the opportunity to kind of kickstart cannabis in New Jersey and in New York.
So it's interesting that you said that, because one of the spaces that I focused on was primarily Canada, where it's federally legal. And I talking to people, like, if you see what it is, it's just sometimes what I almost call, like, it wasn't a hippie convention in any way. It was like a legit Wall Street convention.
Oh yeah.
Financing the cannabis industry, I think is what it might have been called. And I had all these people from Canada, and they're like, they just set it up, they got their license. And I think what people don't realize is, like you said, you can only have one license. You got to pick whether or not you want to be a manufacturer, wholesaler, distributor.
Well, it's changing now. So the cultivation license, it allows you to piggyback with the manufacturing license. They kind of work hand in hand. So you could grow the flower, and then you could use the flower and change it into an oil at some point. So, like, I have clients that have the cultivation license. I said, okay, Josh, let's now apply for the manufacturing license, because what are we going to do with all this trim and flower and shake that we can't sell, right? We can't bag because it's not appealing. Okay, well, there's other areas so we can make money on it. But it's funny what you said about Canada, federally legal. Cannabis is still a class 1 substance here, and it's still illegal in America. Now it's legal by the states, but not legal by the federal government, which imposes problems, right? You can't sell cannabis across state lines. The Commerce Clause stops that. So, if you buy cannabis in New York or grown in New York, you can't sell in Jersey, and vice versa. So once it opens up federally, the whole game is going to change. I mean, it's going to become like the alcohol and tobacco industry, which is why I wanted to get involved in it now.
Right. So one of the things, I'm going to put your psychic hat, right? I'm going to ask the Swami here. There's basically what I've kind of understood is that there's going to be, at some point, it's all going to be controlled by an industry. You mentioned alcohol and tobacco. You have big pharma. And I think that there's a third one, but it's escaping me, that will most likely control what the future looks like of the industry. And, and the reason why I was mentioning Toronto is that a lot of these guys will get their retail license. They'll start a public company in the hopes that, people just want to buy into cannabis rather than getting all the licenses and going through the legwork. Guess
Yeah.
what? I can just buy the stock.
Cool. Yeah. By the way, just to piggyback off of what you just said, if you don't think that Miller, which is known as the high life, at some point isn't going to operate a cannabis business, you're high yourself, because
Right.
once they get into this, why wouldn't the high life also wanted to piggyback cannabis?
Right.
Alcohol. I mean, it makes sense to me.
No, and that's why I thought, like, and I'm so excited about this because everybody asks. I know that you and Richie are doing a good job of getting the words out. I reached out to you, not, I have people that keep calling me and they're like, they have these visions, and off camera we were talking about this. The West Coast is so different than the East Coast. People are calling me up. Hey, listen, we're looking for farmland. Here's our vision. We want to have a log cabin where people can go out into the woods and, do whatever.
Okay.
But
Joshua Tree.
yeah. And I'm like, yeah, no, not in New Jersey right now. Right. It's like,
Well, I think the first thing to like kind of guide your clients on, listen, if you want to open up a clothing store, you have to start the business, you have to get the banking, you have to get the trademarks, you have to find the distributors overseas or in country, you have to produce, you have to design. It's not just a simple feat, you're not just growing a couple flowers in your basement and now all of a sudden you're a booming industry. Like,
right.
you have to be prepared to either get investors, right? Figure out a way to have people that have capital to start the business, because there's going to be a lot of cost that goes into it just to get started. Just like every business, they're excited about cannabis. They think they could snap their fingers and they're going to get it. No, there is more duct tape, red tape. What's it? Red tape, not duct tape. There's more red tape that you have to get through. It might as well be duct tape. There's more red tape that you have to get through in order to even get started. So you got to make sure you have capital, private investors. You got to figure out what to do.
So you mentioned capital, you mentioned private investors, and I think it's important for people to know here too, because it's not federally legal. Chances are your bank, I could almost guarantee your bank will not bank you once they see some sort of attachment. And for the people that are kind of new and just, I hope you're still watching at this point, but it's really important to understand that there are options out there, but they're limited. And just because they open up a bank account for you today, I've heard of people getting a check from their bank for $100 million and saying, "We appreciate you banking with us, but you're gonna have to find another bank because we're not risking our license."
So FDIC banks are different than state chartered banks.
Okay.
Just for your viewers to understand, if you're going to look for a Chase bank to store your proceeds from cannabis, not happening. If you're going to go to Valley National or BCB Bank, state chartered banks here in New Jersey, because it's state regulated, state legalized, they'll allow you to put your money into the bank. Now, lending is a totally different animal to fight. And we're trying to convince these small banks, hey guys, lend on this business. Here's the pro forma, here's the EBITDA, here's the projections, here's the cold hard cash, right? Lend now and get your foot in the door. Because once JP gets involved, once Goldman gets involved, once Morgan Stanley gets involved, you guys are done. You'll never, you're in the real estate industry, Pete. What kind of fight do people have to go when it comes to getting mortgages compared to big banks versus the small loan officers, right? It's a totally different environment. It's a totally different beast. So, once I feel like the big banks, once it passes federal, becomes federally legal, I think that the small banks are going to miss the boat.
Yeah, even the small banks, it's like, what's their end? I always laugh because I love being in the banking space. I worked for two global payments companies, and that was my main focus. And it's like, what's your net result, right? Because I was at a conference, I believe it was in Boston, and the guy was telling me, he's like, we can't grow that bad. Yeah, there's all these ratios in order to keep your license.
Yeah.
because even if we wanted to double our revenue, we couldn't.
Why?
And
Yeah.
I'm like, what? Like,
Yeah.
on what planet do we live on? I never even thought about that because of the regulations and everything else. And there's a process. Like somebody's like, "Hey, why don't you open up a office here?" And I'm like, "Well, I got to file paperwork with the state of New Jersey before I can open up another real estate office." It's that simple. It's not, "Hey, I found a location. I just want to do it." And because you're moving money around, right? And you're moving a lot, and the
And the money that
AML.
gets monitored. I mean, all money gets monitored, but this money specifically gets monitored. So definitely have to dot your I's, cross your T's, and keep a log of everything. So, I mean, and that's required for the CRC here in New Jersey. So,
So is it? I was in a banking conference in Missouri, not Missouri, Kansas,
okay.
Kansas City. I guess it could have been Missouri or Kansas, one or the other, right?
Down the block, no big deal.
Literally, and some lady was, she was in the banking. I'm like, "Have you ever been to like a production facility?" And I don't know, like, is it the same nationally? She had to wear a hazmat suit. Uh,
Oh yeah, no, this is real deal. You're covered head to toe. In New Jersey, during the application process, you have to draft SOPs, standard operating procedures. There's going to be a security SOP where, if you're a grow, you're going to have live camera footage connected to the local police department 24/7 to
Right.
make sure that, everything is monitored, everything is checked off. There's no, let's just say, sketchy things going on while you're growing because they want to limit the black market type business. This is regulated business. Everything is going to be, I mean, look at the big pharma, like you said, look at the FDA, look at all that. They have a close watch on everything that goes in, goes out. So, the cameras is just one aspect of it.
Yeah, it's funny because my wife is she sells facial recognition software.
Done.
Yeah,
So you know what? You're gonna need thumbprint scans to get in from room to room, or some sort of digital code or lock and key. You're not just gonna allow random people to be able to walk around, pocketing flour off the plants into
right.
their coat pockets, and it's gonna be monitored. So
I think there's a documentary on Netflix called Murder Mountain or something like that.
I don't know
And
if I saw that one.
it's in Washington State or something where all these hippies go up there, and it's a cultivation plant, and they literally make people, like, as they're clipping the
Yeah,
flower.
naked, right?
Naked, yeah, and
Yeah, it's like American Gangster with Denzel.
right. That's it.
Yeah.
That's all it is, right?
Yep.
So, all right. So, all right. We talked about a little bit about the New Jersey process. I mean, we've talked about a lot. I hope people appreciate how much we've talked
Yeah.
about, even though we haven't even really gotten into much.
Barely
What,
scratched the surface.
yeah, costs, the pros, cons.
All right, so just to back up a little bit, just to get into the application, there is a priority, and this is where people think that they're just gonna like move up the ladder and get the license lickety split. So social equity businesses, diverse owned businesses, impact zones, certain types of bonuses, social equity. I said that already. These are areas that if you check certain boxes, right, your application is supposed to be reviewed by the CRC prior to the average male business owner. They want people that have had previous cannabis convictions. They want people that are in zones that were taken advantage of during the drug wars. Only problem is a lot of that doesn't correlate with the municipality themselves. So, Asbury Park may be an impact zone designated by the CRC, but Asbury Park may or may not have opted in to allow cannabis into their town. So it's kind of a contradiction. And, that's a big problem as someone in real estate or cannabis law or the clientele, because, finding where they can operate is the first box they really have to check.
Sorry about that. No, that's the whole thing. It's like people want to jump in, but they don't have a starting point, right? So conceptually, it's like, all right, I have an idea, right? And we talked about this. financing's not cheap.
Um,
So, and then of course, there's also a cost like, hey, Josh, I wanna run into this, and I'm sure many people have asked you to joint venture with them
Yeah,
on some of these, right?
I,
Because,
I, I would love to. Sadly, ethically, I can't.
right.
Stupid
Right.
lawyer rules. Can't get involved in too many of the businesses. But one day, maybe.
Yeah, and again, if it made sense, you would do it, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Financially for your family. And it's just kind of like, okay, so we touched the data points, like here's the application process. Now, roughly, you talked about the priorities and stuff like that. How long does the application process take? Talking
So
months, talking years?
months. The conditional application is like the bare bones application where everybody gets excited from. I think there's hundreds, maybe 5, 6, 700 applications that were granted for conditional license. That's like, hey, my name is Bob. Here's my waiver. Here's my business plan. Let's get this party started. Obviously it's more complex than that, and there's a bunch of boxes you have to check off. So if anybody's looking for a conditional license, it's not the wrong move. It's just I go I take a different approach, right? I like to gather all of my information, make sure that they actually can obtain a license that can be worthwhile. Because once you get the conditional license, then you have to convert it to the annual license. So you get online, you submit your conditional license, whether you're priority or not, you get the stamp of approval, and then you have 120 days to then convert that from conditional to annual. Now, the main aspect of that is that you need an actual location where cannabis is accepted, right? And you need zoning town approval. So, hey, here I found a building, I got the letter of intent from the landlord. Everything is checked off. We could operate in this town of Red Bank, in this location, on this block. I got my LOI, I got my conditional license. Now I have 120 days to execute on the purchase agreement or the lease agreement for that property. Well, landlord just changed his mind. I don't want cannabis in my space. Seller is like, okay, I want 4x of what the appraised value is of the property because it's cannabis. Why not? Some landlords are like, well, I'll sell it to you for 2x, but I also want a profit share. So after the first 3 years, when you make $3 million, I'm going to escalate our rental rates, right? That's insane. That doesn't really happen. Usually it's a 3% commercial increase, right? Then you have to have this time crunch to find this property, which may or may not exist. And then what happens? Do you lose your license? Do you get another good guy extension? Hey, CRC, I'm in the process of finding my real estate, but I really need like 90 more days. Will they grant that? That's kind of the area that we're in right now. Are we going to get further extensions? Are they going to make us pay another application fee, which could be $10,000, right? So do we want to do our due diligence and get all of our ducks in a row right now and submit for an annual license? That way, once you're stamped by the CRC, you're ready to rock and roll, open up the doors. Or do we want to go conditional and then convert and then have to put all the pieces together in a time frame? So I personally like the annual license because I want to see the business plan. I want to see that you own the property. I want to see that you have a commercial lease ready to go. I want to see architectural plans that we're going to bulldoze this wall and building, and we're going to build this up, and it's going to comply with the CRC and the local municipality, because we have to get in front of the board and get town approval and zoning approval and mayor approval, and the chief of police has got to be the first one online to buy cannabis. Whatever each municipality needs, you have to check those boxes prior to actual operation.
Right. And what would you say? I mean, you mentioned a lot of people get conditional licenses. The people that usually reach out to me are desperate for property. I don't think that they realize what they're getting into. And a lot of them, I think, have what is it? What's the pie in the sky? Hey, we're going to build this log cabin. We need about 7 acres. People can hang out in this resort type atmosphere and just chill out and have really good conversations.
Beautiful. I mean, look, the reality of it is that I have a couple of specific clients that I could talk about, but you started off with a small idea. I want to be a micro, 10 employees or less. Oh, you know what? I can't really make that much money as a micro business. I want to go to the next level to grow. Class 1, tier 1 class license. So you could grow up to 10,000 square feet. Okay, now I'm starting to hit that custom brewery type, the Rook Coffee, the whatever breweries are out there that are more appealing than the average mass consumption, light beer, whatever the case may be. So now you realize that this is really the space you want to be in, right? Because you want to be unique. Oh, okay. Well, now my warehouse that I need, it doesn't need to be 2,000 square feet. It's got to be 12,000 square feet. Okay. Well, now my cost to build this warehouse just, quadrupled. Now what do? Now I need Pete to find me some financing because I need 5 million instead of 2 million.
Right. And that's the whole thing. It's like, I don't go into it too much because once I ask the question, do you have a license? And I hear conditional, like what does it cost to get a conditional versus an annual?
A couple $100, maybe a couple $1,000. I mean, it depends on, are we applying for the license? Is it the application or is it the process, right? I have a lot of people that do the conditional license on their own because they could kind of navigate the waters. And then once they realize, hey, I got to draft 20 SOPs, 5 to 10 pages of pop, breaking down the CRC law and how our day-to-day minute to second operations are actually going to work. Now I got to hire somebody. Okay, what's a cannabis application writer gonna run you? Are you gonna hire an attorney? You got to talk to an accountant. You got to talk to a business consultant who knows every mayor under the sun because you need that sheriff's letter or the zoning department's letter. So, people think that they could get started, and look, it can happen. It can. I think it's going to be a booming industry, and people that can really dig in and find the right business plan and investors, I think that they're going to come out on top. I really do. I think that this is going to be a $1 trillion industry. You got to get in. You got to get in. You got to get started. You got to take the lumps. But everybody does with every business. I started a law firm. I'm from New York. I moved to Jersey. My partner Richie told me we're going to rent a house, and I said, "Why? What do you mean a house?" But little did I know, on Mapic Avenue in Red Bank, every house is a commercial business. So yeah, we're going to get a house, and it's a great location, and we get a lot of drive-by traffic, and it's really working out fantastically. But had I known, totally different perspective. So I think teaching your client to understand what the end goal is, seeing if they really have the same goal as you do. I want to build people's businesses up, help them make the $100 million. That's the kind of work that I like. So, prosper.
Yeah, I think that's the important part. It's because, this is not something that you need somebody that, like I had a realtor asking me, hey, do you have 4 or 5 acre farmland? And I'm like,
Yeah.
Just
Is that really what you're looking for? Yeah.
Yeah, just walk away, just refer it out, and I know guys that, work on the approvals because they have the land, they acquired the land. It's, even for an investor, just do that and get the approvals for the cannabis space, like that's huge. And then you were talking about warehouse versus greenhouse. Just again, other options for the layman, stuff that people don't consider. And God knows you've brought a lot to the table about stuff that I haven't considered. Listen, we could talk about this for hours. I see on your background, kind of all your contact information. Yeah, scan you. Typically, can somebody call you? I'm sure they're going to bombard us with phone calls on how to get started.
Please call me up. I'd love to discuss the business plan. Most people out there that aren't involved in the space want to be a retailer, right? Because it's easy to operate. The cost is less than a cultivator. Cultivation, you have to have the mindset. You have to have experience growing. You have to understand the science behind it. So right away, if someone calls me up and says, hey, I want to be a cultivator, but I've never grown cannabis before, I'm like, okay, not happening. Unless you're going to go hire, botanists, or people in the cannabis industry, right? Some people want to be an investor, like you said, but if you want to be a retail owner, the hardest The hardest thing is to find the space, and then open up shop and build your brand and develop your marketing and Godspeed. I'm here to help. But
And agreed. Listen, we're trying to help, but there's realistic and then there's unrealistic. So we're just trying to get you to the point of, hey, have you considered all these things before you spend tons of hours and thousands of dollars for something that's probably not going to happen, right? And I'm all about the entrepreneur. I have an entrepreneurial mindset.
yeah.
It's what I love. So
Listen, like I said, you're going to start any business. Nobody could just go out there and be a GC. You can't, you're going to invest some money, right? You got to get your license. You can't start a trucking company without a CG, without some sort of driving license. Every business is going to cost money. So if you are interested in starting a cannabis business, give me a call, scan my QR code, see our link page, our Linktree page, come to the website, see what what areas of interest are. Richie and I have the experience with the municipalities and the real estate, and we could be a one-stop shop for a lot of the business aspects of it, which is really what you want. You want somebody to hold your hand through the whole thing. We could do that. If you want to go on your own, we'll guide you. So, but call Pete for the real estate. I need a 4-acre land in the middle of Jersey City, please, Pete. Come on, find it.
Yeah, Newark.
Perfect.
But in all actuality, I mean, it is a viable business. I love having partners like you, Josh, on board because I know my limitations. I think it's called the Peter Doctrine, if you've ever heard it.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of the Peter Doctrine? You can only get promoted so far before you get tapped out. I never heard of this, and then I heard so I'm always growing, but I also know my limitations. So
What's what you've seen the movie Cocktails with Tom Cruise, old school movie?
Yeah.
What does he say? This is gonna kill me now. The older guy always gives advice to Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
And he's like, something's law, and
Murphy's
law, or something like that. I mean, in the end, the guy ends up dying. So what does he know? But what does he know? But yeah, Peter's law. There's only so much.
Yeah. So, I love having teams in place. I appreciate you doing this with me because I know what my videos usually get as far as content views. I know that this is going to be something that a lot of people are looking for. They just don't know where to start. Call me, call Josh. We'll get you at least going in the right direction, seeing if it's a viable thing or not for you. And again, I love the entrepreneurial spirit. We're both business owners. I own my brokerage. You own your law practice. And, it's just, let's help people. That's where I come from. So
let's help people. Let's help people make money and grow. And hopefully in a couple of weeks, we'll do a Cannabis 2 take.
I love it. Let's see how this one goes. All right, folks. Thanks, Josh. Appreciate your time, man.
Guys, thank you very much. Pleasure.